I haven't,
No,
I
when
don't
I
know
was
the date yet.
much
but it'll
younger,
probably be in
my
April.
first house I bought, I had a burn barrel in the backyard, and I stuffed a bunch of paper bags.
We can
Drift
talk
away
about the
grocery
shorelines,
bags
I
with a bunch of-
Here,
suppose.
sign away.
like,
I'm
we're
gonna give you this
kind
card.
of still
If you
And I
want
had a piece of plywood I put over it.
help
so
with
it went wet. It's
reviewing
out there,
stuff
they
if
got
you
gas,
want.
but it
I mean,
wouldn't
it's
fire off.
pretty-
You
Dump
wanna
some
sign it?
gas on it.
So
Stood
I've
back
had
and
a
looked
lot of
past,
discussions with,
flicked it on there.
We can do
It shot like
freezing
a
it.
cannon.
Hey,
It went straight up in the air, flaming.
Lauren
The
and
neighbors
Mike
were like
and Sean.
waiting for our committee meeting.
Did you send my pen around, or
Oh.
where's the?
oh, I'm sorry.
Huh? Right here.
He's very.
I like that pen, I like this, it's got a nice flow to it.
It's a good pen. She's that way about it. I am obsessed with my pens.
You like the ball, you know,
I got, I'll let you, you can't keep it. I'll let you write with this. Then you'll-
Do you wanna try
I've
mine?
tried those. I like
Down to
those.
the portrait.
what's it here, let her try this one.
I like that one.
Oh, you've tried it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. You have a pen? You have a special pen? No, you don't
I've got
even.
3 pens here.
You don't
I just
even
grabbed
write.
Tell me what it
Is
says,
it,
'cause I've
we
seen
got
it.
blue? You only have black.
I need it. Today.
Blue.
Is it April yet?
Why do you ask? Is it because of my birthday? This is April. That was good. That was good. Don't overuse it.
I've got to use it in actual open session.
Well, sure. Well, you know. It's not online, it didn't happen.
Where's Brett? Is he here?
He's here early. I mean, not here early, but today he was, we're 7 o'clock.
Okay. I'm going to call the Montesano City Council meeting for March 8th, 2022 to order. If you will all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call roll call?
Councilman Trimble? Councilman Coe?
Here.
Councilman Bryson?
Here?
Councilman Wood?
Here.
Councilman Scaramuccia?
Here.
Councilman Carl?
Here.
Councilwoman Jester?
Here.
Move to excuse the absent council member.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to excuse Councilman Trimble. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Would seek to make an amendment to tonight's agenda and add an executive session for the Forestry Committee at the conclusion of the meeting. Or towards the end of the meeting.
I'm going to put that right after mayor's comments.
Is it a council
Does it
executive?
require, does it require,
Will require action.
how, do you want it before the comments or after the comments?
Why don't we do it after comments?
So we're going to add on to the agenda an executive session on the issue of purchase of real estate right after the mayor's comment on the agenda. Okay, moving on, we are at approval of bills.
I move for approval of bills.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the bills as audited. Would the finance committee like to make a report?
Sure. There was a total this month of $66,630.62. Overall, they were very routine bills, nothing extraordinary. $5,000 for taxes, $5,000 to HD Fowler, $14,000 for insurance, and $2,200 for Grays Harbor equipment. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bills are approved as audited. We are now at minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second? Second. There is a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are at the first public comment period. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment at this time? I will delay this by an additional 20 seconds in order to allow anyone online that would like to make a comment to be able to make a comment. Okay, there is another time on the agenda to make public comments if anyone would like to do so at the time. Is there anyone outside of forestry that met in between our meetings that would like to make a report? Yes, sir.
Public Works met last Wednesday. Two topics here. First is East Pioneer Avenue improvements. We got a bid from Broadlands Incorporated. It was low bid. This is replace water main, East Pioneer, for 2 blocks and resurface the road. And the bid at $418,000. Well, it's below engineer's bid. It seemed like a good deal, and they're good people, so we got three enthusiastic thumbs up from the committee, so I'm hoping tonight you'll authorize the mayor to sign agreement with Robbins. The second is a two-part here. It's in your council packet. Starts out with revised fee structure for our
Hearing examiner.
hearing examiner. A little history here for the new council members. In December 2020, we had a hearings examiner that had been with us for a number of years, probably 15 to 20 years he's been here. And he was really nice to us. He just never raised his rates. And he retired. And when we advertised to replace him, we found out that the cost had gone up exponentially. In some cases, some of these have tripled. So that gave us the opportunity to really look at our staff costs and our time, and we revised these fees just to recover costs. And in some cases, some things tripled, some things actually went down, believe it or not. But the second half of this is a revision to our code, and the committee is asking the council to support a code change where some of the more simplified codes would be reviewed by the council first before they went to the hearing examiner. It would save cost and maybe speed up the process. But if they seem too complex, then we would just pass them on to the hearing examiner. But it would keep the cost down up front for somebody that had some simple, like I guess just a revision or a line lot adjustment or a fence or something, you know, some of the more simple things. So it's quite clear in your package if you read it, but we're hoping we can have a deeper discussion later on. And this is going to have to go on to the planning commission. There'll have to be a public hearing. So I think tonight we review it and then it goes to the planning commission. Am I right, Mike? Yeah. So after thinking about it a little bit, so eventually this would have to go through the zoning text change code provisions, which require that that the planning commission have a public hearing on the code changes. And so I would anticipate they would probably need a couple of meetings to, one, go through the changes, make any suggested edits they might want to make, and then to follow up with a hearing at their next meeting. So it could take 2 months to go through that process before it comes back to council, where it would be in the form of an ordinance for the code changes and in the form of a resolution for the fee changes.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
I do. It seems that adding this layer of this alternate path of council review would actually simplify the process for the citizens and possibly streamline it. Is that the committee's understanding as well?
Speed it up.
I don't see a way that it would make things any more, that it could possibly make it more difficult.
We
So,
do feel we have the guidance, we have Mike, we have Jason, we have really some of these, it doesn't take a lot of review and research to come to a decision on some of these things. So, and if it did, if we felt it was too much, then we just hand it off.
I like the idea of making it easier for people. I just want to make sure that that's your understanding as well.
So, Clint, I think part of the recommendation is there are 3, maybe 4 things, and Mike, you might need to help me out here, that would automatically go to the hearing examiner: the shoreline issues, the growth management issues, which for us is our critical area ordinance, the long plat, which is 10 or more lots on the division. And was there a 4th one, Mike?
Shorelines?
Yeah, shoreline, growth management, long plat, subdivision, maybe just those 3?
Yeah, and there would be any critical areas
Yeah,
related
that's part of the
stuff,
Growth
which is-
Management Act. So I guess just the 3. But those are, the nature of all of those are complex. And so we thought having someone with the technical understanding and skill set would just send it there automatically. The other things we would have come to the council, and then if the council decides to refer it to the hearing examiner, then the person would know the cost of that if they wanted to continue. So the less complex things would come to the council.
Thanks for clarifying. That makes sense.
So my concern, and I've already expressed it to the committee through Mr. Olden, but it's something for you guys to weigh as you go through this, and is that while I certainly appreciate this council, and as you said, Mr. Olden and Mr. Mattingly, councils change, people change, and the importance of the hearings examiner was that there was consistency in the decision-making. And so the risk that every council has, even if it is a simple decision, you guys hear me? Yeah. The risk that you have is that one set of variances may be approved, one short plat, I don't know if short plats are included or not, may be approved and another may not be. And it might be because of relationships. It might be, and those are things to consider. Having to take it out of council, you need a majority vote. That might, there might be places to tweak that to help to make that not a problem into the future. I think it's really important when you're passing these changes not to look at specifically this group, but to think of the worst case scenario and then plan for that. So.
I think the short plats are staff processes. They're not council or hearing examiner.
Yeah, so a short plat would be completely under the jurisdiction of the administrator. It can be appealed to council. So the most prevalent things that may come before council would be in the form of a variance for, say, a lot line adjustment, or not a lot line adjustment, but maybe a setback request to vary the setback, like a backyard setback or a front yard setback. Or the other thing that I've seen once or twice is potential for conditional use exemptions or permits. And so conditional uses are, for example, if I want to put a fourplex in a residential 2 zone, I would have to get a conditional use permit for that. And so there's a certain amount of tests that have to be satisfied to be able to do that. And so that would probably be the most complex thing that would come before council.
And so part of this might be that you guys develop some basic rules for any council to look at instead of having, like conditional use will have the hearings. All the neighbors are notified, obviously, and then they can come and argue whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. Why would you allow one neighbor to have a setback and not another person to have a setback? if you had built in some tier or some kind of objective frame of valuing, it might go to the goal of objectivity within the council, whether that's by policy or within the ordinance, it's up to you. But just as a thought, as you guys are going through it.
I think we did put some procedural language in here regarding hearings that would come before the council, not the criteria you're suggesting, but that criteria doesn't exist for the hearing examiner either. You know,
Right.
so
But the hearing examiner brings expertise to the table, and there's, I don't believe any, well, perhaps you, I mean, but most of us don't deal with any form of property disputes or property adjustments and things of that nature. So we don't have that depth. And so one of the benefits is you have all those examples in your past history that you can say, oh, this makes sense because of, it's not, within that parameter. So anyway, I didn't mean to have this massive discussion. I just want to make sure I'm raising the issue and that as you guys go through it, that
well, I've dealt with shoreline management and growth management for 30 years, and that's the nature of that being so complex is what we discussed as a committee and why we wanted those to automatically go to the hearing examiner, because those are very, very technical in nature. The others are not so much.
anything else about this?
Your ad hoc ADA compliance committee met today after having done some research. I want to report to you that I was somewhat disappointed in we were specifically going to look for policies that were already in place and that kind of thing. There's really a lack of it out there. Most communities are addressing the whole ADA issue as a protected class in their non-discrimination ordinances or policies. As far as a practical application as to how we comply with it, most of the compliance deals with providing information as to how to file a complaint and a grievance and that kind of thing. And I don't think that's the direction that we want to go. I think we were looking for more, how does the city actually respond to ADA issues, and how do we make sure that we are compliant and that kind of thing. If I'm misreading that, let me know, but I think that's the direction we want to go. And it may be somewhat time consuming to actually put that together.
Okay. So
I have copies of the RCW, I have copies of the federal statute that was passed, and there's actually several of them, quite a few of them.
Well, why don't you, hold that thought for a second. Would it be helpful for the two of you if we asked our city attorney to reach out and see if there are policies that exist in other cities that we could take and
That certainly wouldn't hurt. I looked at the Association of Washington Cities website, hoping that they would have some information. It was very minimal, almost non-existent at that level, so.
did you reach out to the Department of Deaf and Hard of Hearing? There's
I did look at both the Washington State and the federal organizations on those. Once again, their compliance is primarily about how people should report violations, which is disappointing. I was really looking, like I said, I was really looking for how we actually respond to making sure that we're in compliance without being reactionary. But we need to be upfront about it. And there's not a lot of information from that respect.
okay. All right, so.
Yeah, we can easily look at both the federal and the state ADA rules and then do some, whether it's policy or whether it's an ordinance, outline some procedures internally that we can do to make sure we're there. And I think one of the things we've talked about is needing a ADA compliance individual on staff, somebody who can front those kind of issues and on a day-to-day basis. But we need some procedural things also to back that person up.
So like designating the mayor or something like that?
Yeah, like that, yeah. Or the
Certainly
newest
wait for the
council
phone
member
calls.
or.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a step in the right direction. At least we know what we don't know, and that's a positive step. And maybe we can take what you just said, outline, pick out whatever is appropriate for a city our size, and then and if we can find a policy, then maybe we can mesh it together.
I think we need to be proactive on this, very proactive, and not just the ADA, the overall discrimination issues. We need to be very proactive in having a foundation of where staff can be directed, how to respond to issues, that kind of thing is a step you're a step ahead of the curve if you're there.
So our goal is to meet at least once between meetings, and more if necessary. We want to stay on task on this issue.
Yes.
So any information that can come our way, we will certainly work with that. So thanks.
Thank you, both of you. Did forestry want to make the report now or wait?
There were other subjects that were discussed in addition to the property acquisition. We have had some issues, as was reported to us by Chief Vance and Forester Heiner, some abuses of the permitting system for forest access. So we discussed some possible steps that may be taken to help alleviate that issue. In addition, the timber sale, potential timber sale for 2023 being moved up to 2022 was discussed. As Forester Heiner put it, the market is red hot right now. I believe he said it was over $100 higher than it was at this point last year. And so there's a proposal before us to move up the sale of 90 acres of fir that was set for purchase with a goal price of $950,000 in 2023 to move up to 2022. Bid documents are being put together, and the Forestry Committee was in agreement with them and unanimously approved bringing that to council. Any other members of the committee like to report or make comment? Or Lauren, anything that you would like to add?
So, Madam Mayor, would you prefer we address this issue under new business, or would you entertain a motion now?
I'd be happy to take it now.
So I move that we authorize our forester to move forward with the 2023 timber sale early to take advantage of the market.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to allow the 2023 forest sale to occur in 2022. Is there any discussion?
I would just say that Lauren's timing and insight has been beneficial to us over the years, and I think his judgment is trustworthy.
Anything further? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are at old business. We have none. We are at new business, the memorandum of understanding regarding CFO clerk. That position had not been put into the Teamsters. Our new CFO is a member of Teamsters and asked specifically to be put into that bargaining unit. If you guys, just for background, the management team is part of its own Teamsters local union, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what the
Bargaining unit.
bargaining unit, thank you. And so the CFO was not part of it when we started, and so she requested, and the union believes that's a great thing. And so this is a memorandum of understanding, and if you would like to make, you can choose to, I guess, wait for next meeting, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you'd like to make a motion, I could get it done.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the MOU with Teamsters Local 252 regarding the CFO.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to allow the mayor to sign the letter of understanding between the city of Montesano and the Teamsters Local Union number 252. Is there any discussion?
So this unit is not bargaining for benefits or work conditions or anything else. This is correct?
The only part of the contract that's consistent is the ability to get health insurance and I think the holidays. Thought that but I didn't know why we added the holidays, but yes, any grievances or bargaining, I guess, for wages are left outside of that contract. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This is the development of fees and code change proposal that was discussed earlier. It's just for introduction purposes. So we're moving on to the ambulance billing contract. Chief, if you want to,
Do we want to just refer that on to the planning commission since they need to have a hearing on it?
sure.
I move to refer the recommended code changes to the planning commission for them to schedule a hearing and make recommendations back to the council.
There is a motion and a second to allow the planning commission to start their process with the development fees and code change proposal. Is there any discussion?
It would just be for the code change. The fees would not go to the planning commission. And unless they're not, the fees aren't in code, are they? So it would just be the text.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're at the ambulance billing contract. Do you want to summarize before we?
Sure. Council and Mayor, definitely, or this is a contract to outsource the ambulance billing. I know this has been a hot topic throughout the years. The company that I think it's Systems Design Northwest, this is what they do. This is all they do. They don't do doctor's offices and anything else. They do ambulance billing for across the Pacific Northwest or the state of Washington. In a nutshell, they charge $23 a packet, which the packet is anytime we have an ambulance run. They take that packet once we send it to them, and they go from start to finish on that. One of the big questions was, Shay Smith is our current ambulance biller. That person, we will still need that person. The guys still run the ambulance calls. They still do all the paperwork. They get it to Shay. Shay then makes sure everything is there. Everything is filled out completely. She does all this stuff. What she's not going to be doing is talking with the insurance companies for hours on end, on hold, so on and so forth. And that's really the gist of it. Myself and the mayor met with the union. They have agreed to do this. I believe they said a one-year trial. It's a one-year contract anyway with a 60-day out clause. I have vetted this contract, or there's 3 contracts there. I vetted these 3 contracts with Chris Coker. He has went through it. And I am asking for the council to authorize the mayor to sign these contracts to move forward. And it'll take probably 4 to 6 weeks for us to get all the credentialing and everything transferred to them so they can do what they need to do. And so we're hoping, I know we're kind of March now, or in March, but I was hoping for April 1. But anyway, that's where we're at.
I would just add that I have made it clear, and both to the union as well as to Shay, that we will continue to train her as if she is going to be billing, so that someone from the city has the knowledge to look at whatever product we're getting to assure ourselves that the city's doing what it should do. So she'll be kind of the second pair of eyes as to this contract.
Yes, and in this next year, if it's not working, I wouldn't say it'd be seamless, but it is able to come right back in our hands. We currently, we have 2 people right now, Shay and another fire member that is down doing training right now, keeping their credentialing up. And so it's not about getting rid of that position at all. I mean, we need her. I mean, it can't be done without her. So that was our, that's really what it comes down to. But it's going to save a lot of time. And I would say just on hold time or on phone time. And so, and I think it could be actually, money-wise, it could actually benefit us in the long run.
Does anyone, I need a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the ambulance billing contracts. Is there any discussion?
I looked the company up online, and from what I could see, they were very reputable and seemed to take a lot of pride in their work, and they had good things to say.
Yes, as a matter
as
of
far
fact,
as that goes.
that was one of the things that Shay said. She's kind of in a, I don't want to say a chat group or whatever it is with other ambulance billers. And when she brought up their name, it was very overwhelming.
That's
to-
valuable information.
Yeah. District 2 uses them. I know that some other agencies in the area are going to start going to them. Like I say, this is what they do. This is their specialty. They do ambulance billing and not doctor's offices and everything else. So, yeah. And they're out of
Paulsville.
Paulsville. I was going to say Bremerton, but yeah, I knew it was close. So anyway.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next topic is Grace Harbor EMS. This is for your knowledge, I suppose. As of May 1st, Grace Harbor EMS will no longer be in existence. The consequence to us, well, let me first tell you what they do. For all paramedics and EMTs, they track all the credentialing that's necessary year by year. They also are responsible for training all of our EMTs. Currently, we have 7 EMTs that they don't charge us for that because they used to be funded by transit taxes, and transit has done it, I think, like 20 years. But in a recent audit, they were told they were not allowed to do that. And so, Grace Harbor EMS used to train all of our EMTs. This year, as I said, there's 7 at $1,500 a pop that we will have to contract out. So the mayors met last week for, I think, 3 hours, and this was a large part of the conversation to figure out how we're going to address this. I know that, I believe that, I'm not sure if only the fire chiefs met from the fire districts. Were you part of that meeting?
Was it last night? No, well, they did have a meeting last night. Captain Smith went to that meeting and attended. So it creates another layer of issues, not just the
Yep.
EMS office, but all of the firefighter, paramedics, and medical personnel within Grace Harbor County are under Dr. Buck as their ME. And if the EMS office does not exist, Dr. Buck has no one to work for or under. And so we will not have an ME, which would then, my understanding is it would go back to the state and the state would figure it out. I mean, I don't know what that means, but I would say on the DEFCON level, we are DEFCON 1. And besides the credentialing, besides the training, our ME, all, you know, it's really, it's just frustrating that this has been going on for 2 years. And they have a very small budget. I'm going to, please don't hold me to this, but I think it's somewhere around $200,000 to run this entire program, to train all the EMTs in the harbor, to do all the credentialing. Again, I haven't been a part of the EMS world for very long, but it's gotten, in 8 months, it's gotten to a point where we're getting ready to lose our EMS office and our ME.
So the county, we were hoping one of the reasons the city stayed out of it is obviously it should be in the purview of the county because it serves countywide and county takes taxes from all of us. So it's perfect if the county would address it. The county is not going to be able to address it. And therefore, that's what we were talking about last week. And so what our plan, well, we don't have a plan, but what is the current brainstorm idea that we're trying to flesh out is we were hoping that the chiefs would figure it out, and that was what we were waiting for.
Okay.
But since that did not occur last night, and that's the email that I also received from some of the mayors, the last kind of, I want to be very clear, this is just on the blackboard, right? It's tossed on the blackboard. It's not, no one's agreed to it. It's just a brainstorming idea. E911 already collects taxes from all of us and the fire districts. if we can have E911, and we haven't talked to E911, that's the other piece of this, but we have an E911 meeting next week. I believe it's next week. And so we're going to try to get them to contract with Grace Harbor EMS, and we are all going to pay a base fee and a per citizen fee. Relatively consistent with what E91 does for E911 services. We have barely thought of that idea. And so we haven't figured out the practicalities, whether or not E911 will do it. And if E911 won't do it, we don't know who would, because none of the cities want the responsibility of having to do it for everyone else. And so that's where we're at.
Is there a legislative fix that can be sought on this?
They
I thought
have-
there was one last year that came
Right.
before.
And then it was defeated this year, I think. It didn't even make it out.
Committee.
It didn't make it out of committee. I was at last night's meeting. It's very disturbing that there wasn't a legislative or a county option that is available. It's,
Last year, it did make it out of committee. It had votes in one of the houses and it failed in the second house. We don't know why it didn't even make it out of committee this year.
and there was mention last night about the E911 option. And apparently there is at least some attorneys that at the county level that have said that's not going to happen.
Can the training be done in another county, in Thurston, say, for example?
I don't think Thurston can do it. It would be the state. And so the E911 board, I don't think falls completely under the county. The attorney they are different entities. And so I appreciate that the county attorney, I believe that the county has representation on the E911 board.
No, actually, E911 board, this last, actually, I'm going to say in '21, actually asked to go out to the operating board to have their own legal services because different things were taking longer. They had, county attorneys has their time to do their thing, and so I believe E911 has their own counsel now.
Yeah.
And they are a separate entity than the county. Same as the EMS office is an EMS, it sits out as separate. Financially, it would make sense for all the cities and the county to pay some type of fee, such as the 911 system is, as we do right now for law and fire.
So to break it down a little, so to that note, I appreciate whatever the county is saying, but that's not their role, to provide legal services to E911. But what the dilemma is when we were talking, like Causey, I won't use Causey, Oakville does not have a fire department or volunteer fire, if I remember, they belong to a district. And so what we were thinking is, what we'll do is any city that has volunteers and/or a fire department would pay something as a base, and the fire districts would pay something as a base, because the fire districts would therefore cover everything else. For cities like Causey or Elma or Oakville, they would be represented within the fire district. And so they wouldn't have to, so we haven't even asked the fire district commissioners. We'd all have to pass this very quickly, because otherwise it disbands, and putting it back together would be, I don't even know what. So we're going to figure this out in the next week.
And we do have a lot of small fire districts, North River Fire District. All these smart little agencies, anything they have to pay is going to be big to them. And so that's why the EMS office, with the way it was funded prior to, was such an opportunity, or was such a great deal. But anything that any small agency is going to have to pay is going to be big to them. So it is, like I say, it's a very big deal, and so we will continue working on it. I hate to say we have 2 months, but that's not a lot of time.
We don't have too much.
You don't.
May 1st,
Yeah,
March, April.
45 days.
Huh?
You have less than 45 days.
Okay.
Is that when the certifications are expiring?
That's when the department no longer exists.
They're effectively closing their doors April 1st. There'll be
Oh,
part-time
okay.
staff that will take care of the certifications and things up until May 1st, and then that will cease.
When that ceases, if nothing's in place, then the cities will have to take over the certifications, which will be a part-time employee.
So again, financially, it would make sense for all the cities to pitch in and get something
Well,
done.
and just the training on the EMTs this year are going to be approximately $10,000 of unbudgeted funds.
This is a statewide issue, or is it just something that?
I think it happened to us because our funding was through transit.
It is actually a statewide issue. The initial legislation mandated this program, but didn't outline how it was to be implemented. So nearly every single county or region in the state has taken a slightly different approach to it, resulting in situations like we have in Grays Harbor. The federal legislation, when it was originally adopted, was under the U.S. Department of Transportation. So it made sense when Grays Harbor established their emergency medical system to put it under our transportation department. Unfortunately, the funding issue at the state level, when the auditors came in, doesn't recognize emergency medical services as being a legitimate funding category for transportation services in the state of Washington. And so therefore they've said cease and desist funding it that way. One of the other issues is that our EMS office, EMS Trauma Department Committee is actually a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And there's some question about whether the county can actually give public funds to that organizational status. So just my personal perception of this is it really needs to be handled at the state legislative level with a specific guideline as to how this is established on a region or county basis, so that other departments and areas don't run into exactly the same situation.
Unfortunately, the session ends tomorrow, and so that's
Thursday. not.
So it's a 10th.
It's not
Is today the
practical
10th?
fix it
Yeah,
for our situation, but for the future, for long-term sustainability. Kittitas County in eastern Washington is going through a very similar situation there. And again, there's no standardized approach as to how it's done.
Well, and I guess the dilemma is that I don't think we're going to have a standardized approach either. We're going to do what we can for the next 6 to 8 months.
Exactly.
But I would say that and I'd like to have your opinion on this. The way to get around the issue of whether the county can contribute money, I believe the county has $120,000 for this specific purpose, but they will not give it to Grays Harbor EMS. And so, but I don't understand, and you guys can enlighten me if you know, why they can't contract.
They
And-
contract with the Community Action Program for services.
Which is what the secondary option will be if we can't get the money through E911, is we'll come up with some kind of resolution that all the cities will pass, fire districts will have to pass, and then we will all contract with Grays Harbor EMS to fund them.
Yeah. Well, so for information, thank you for your,
Wow.
yeah, I know, it's big.
Yeah,
So
I'm amazed that a bill that got out of one house last year and died, and the opposite house didn't even get a hearing or didn't even come out of,
I think it was approved like 50 to something. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like almost unanimous for one house.
I remember, I'm absolutely, and the reason I asked if it was a statewide issue is I would have thought this is something that AWC or state law enforcement or EM or first responders would have taken up and had a strong push for. So it really amazes me that the legislature dropped the ball on this one.
That's all my
Amazed might be
45
the
days.
wrong word.
Well, this is a serious issue as far
Yeah.
as making sure that we have proper certification for responders and to not take action on it is
Yeah.
beyond me.
Yeah, I had actually talked to a couple of our legislatures and was under the impression it was going to come out of committee. And actually, I didn't even realize that it hadn't come out of committee until last night's meeting.
Oh.
I'm just absolutely blown away.
So if anybody has any input on how to make this process smoother, faster, if anybody has a model that I can borrow to use and send out to the mayors, if anybody has any ins to the fire district commissions, we'll have to be moving fast.
I would agree that for the short term, the going to the contracting on to establish them as a contract service agency is probably the best short-term solution. I don't know if that's going to happen.
So just FYI, for purposes of notice, you guys are going to get the draft solution as soon as I have a draft solution from anybody. And then you'll probably be asked for action immediately at the following meeting, because we won't have the time to, and it may not be perfect, but we'll adjust as we need to. So that was your update. Thank you, Chief. East Pioneer Bid Award. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to allow the mayor to sign contract with Rockland Incorporated for $418,157.80.
A second.
There is a motion and a second to allow the mayor to sign an agreement with Broadlands for the East Pioneer Improvement Project for $418,000, $418,157.80. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can we go back just a moment? Do you need authority to act sooner before the next council meeting with regard to contracting with an entity to provide certification?
Perhaps.
Do you want a motion?
So I wouldn't mind a motion, but I don't know what the ticket will be. It will not be less than 10, and I assume it will be far greater.
Do you anticipate waiting until next council meeting would be a costly delay for us?
I don't know. I mean,
Are you talking about the amount that the city would have to pay? Captain Smith and I sat down last night, and based on the figures that they gave at the meeting last night, our share would be somewhere in the $35,000 to $40,000 bracket.
So if you said not to exceed 50.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement to contract for EMS certification in an amount not to exceed $50,000.
I second.
There is a motion and a second to sign an agreement regarding EMS services not to exceed $50,000. Discussion. And before I want to be very clear about what I'm asking for, what authority I'm asking. I'm not sure who I'm contracting with. So I
Got
just want to
that.
be clear about that. So,
I just don't think we can leave ourselves in a gap on this. I think, for the sake of the operation of the department, I have no idea what this would do to our insurance rating or anything else. So I think that hopefully it's not that much. I think you and the chief will figure out, swallow hard, and do what needs to be done, and hopefully something becomes a little less expensive and more orderly over time.
so this will also come straight out of the fire department budget, the EMS budget. It will not come out of the fire department, so it will not be general fund, it will be EMS. And obviously, because it deals specifically with EMS and paramedic responsibilities.
I assume that when there's a budget revision later in the year, that would cover that.
But remember that it's an enterprise fund. So I'm not sure how, but finance should probably look at it
Yeah.
and think about how that's going to happen. So, anyway, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for that motion, and hopefully, next time I see you, I'll be able to give you a solution. So the next item on the agenda is judicial vacancy. As you all know, our judge, Judge Chris Bays, passed away last week. And so I am in the position of filling that vacancy. In the interim, what I've decided to do for the next 2 months is I've contacted district court and a commissioner from Superior Court who can provide our court the judge until we make a permanent appointment. What we realized when Judge Bates passed away, all of the pro tems under him lost their authority because their authority is delegated from the judge that is actually appointed to the position. In addition to that, there is no such thing as allowing for a temporary position to fill that role, and I could not do it for a shorter term. The statute requires that I fill the position for the remainder of the term under the existing contract. And since we just did the contract, that would be a long-term fill, which I don't feel at the moment that I want to deal with. And so my expectation is the beginning of May. Well, over the next month or two, I will contact a variety of attorneys that I feel confident in that they know what we would expect, and hopefully be able to pick somebody out and then bring them to you for confirmation with the rest of the contract. I expect that probably the first meeting of May, at the latest, the second meeting of May. The city, as you also probably have received an email as to the funeral services, the city will also be sending flowers on behalf of the city to his celebration of life. Does anybody have any questions for me about this?
Do you need confirmation of the interim arrangement?
I don't think so, because there is no confirmation process to that. It's more or less like a pro temming, but with those in a different situation. So it's not technically our judge. So with that, moving on, there are no ordinances or resolutions. We are at the time on the agenda to do public comment. Is there anyone that would like to do public comment at this time? Then I will move to council comment. Councilwoman Jester, would you like to start us off?
Certainly. The Community Center Board met today, and we had figured that in 2021, we served over 20,000 meals. We were surprised, even ourselves, to hear the number. We talked about what kind of mask policy we might have, given the March 12th lifting of masking, but given that we have a very susceptible particular population. So a final decision wasn't made there. Also, a lot of people are looking for us to reopen because we consider our service two-pronged. One is nutrition, and the other was socialization for seniors. So we recognize the importance of that, but again, we're not ready yet to see. I think several of us felt that there might be another outbreak, and we wouldn't want to jump to reopening just yet. But we have been talking at all of our meetings about what that service would look like. It would be different than it was before, more streamlined and lots of different things, which I will report on when we actually go to do that. In April 15th, the cooks are going to be preparing a special holiday meal. And we did this at Thanksgiving, and we charge extra for it. And we have 200 tickets that we allow, that people buy. And it's going to be a glorious lunch that day. So you might want to put it on your calendar. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Bishop Center. I went to the Something Rotten musical that's playing there right now. At least 2 Montesano citizens were in it. And it was the first production since COVID started that they've had in person again. And it was really, really worthwhile. And I'm happy to see they're back on the groove again. I just would like to say my deepest sympathies to the Bates family and to Jamie and to their children. And I knew them. I bought my home from them. It's just heartbreaking.
Councilman Carl.
We've covered a potpourri of things tonight. It's been exciting, and I think we've accomplished some very positive things, and especially with the EMS board of at least trying to do some problem solving there that will pay big dividends in the future if we can get over that hurdle. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Bryson?
Well, it's been very nice to see the ball field lights on lately, and I've noticed that our new playground equipment over at Kelsey Park seems to be extremely popular. It's nice to see that being used. I just wanted to report, I walk McBride Avenue a lot, usually twilight or after dark, and I can tell you that the speed sign is working.
How fast are you walking?
I often see people,
How fast are you walking?
well, it's not working for me, but I've observed cars approaching, and then you see the light flash, they're going a little bit too fast, and then I hear them back off. So it's getting people's attention. It is slowing people down. So when those initially came out, I had my doubts, but I definitely see an improvement. So I'm glad that's the case.
Thank you. Councilman Scaramucca?
First of all, Mal, nice to meet you. I'm Dave. Looking forward to working with you. And, I mean, secondly, we've got some real challenges ahead of us as far as EMS. I sure don't know the answers, but I'm willing to do anything I can. Cheers. That's it.
Councilman?
Councilman Carl, I really appreciate all the words that you had to inform us and the mayor and Chief Vance about the EMS issues. And I'm still having a little trouble contemplating exactly how this got dropped at the legislative level. I'm hoping that there will be a push during the interim to get some sort of legislative fix, if it's possible, done in the upcoming session, where I think we're well represented in Grays Harbor with 6 different representatives. So I'm hopeful that we can find someone who will take up the challenge and be able to bring that across the finish line and get it to the governor's desk. I got to tell you, I know that my unofficial job here is to report on local sporting events. The Montesano ladies basketball team took the term resilience and perseverance to a new level. I don't know if anyone was able to get over to Yakima and to watch them play or to listen to them play or followed in the online or in the daily world how they did. But the injuries, the challenges that they overcame to bring home their first ever state trophy for women's basketball really was inspiring. That was 12 true warriors out there on the court, and they really deserve their congratulations and the admiration of the community. They represented us well over there in Yakima, and look forward to seeing them out on the court again. They had a remarkable season, and we'll have baseball, fast pitch, and boys soccer and track reports coming up for the rest of the season.
Thank you. Councilman Wood.
So I think most of you know that sometime in April, most likely, I will be stepping down from council. Things have changed with my wife's work and taking care of our son with sensory disorders, and so we are downsizing our home and our expenses and our life in order to take care of that priority. So that changes other plans I had contemplated, but that no regrets on that. I did put an announcement on Montesano Matters. The video and text is on there, so if you want to check that out on Facebook, and I'll share more words as I figure out the date and know when exactly I'll be stepping down. But I expect it will likely be between now and the end of April. I am trying to help locate a wheelchair or mobility scooter for a Montesano resident, a senior citizen who has recently experienced the inability to walk to the store anymore. So free or cheap is what I'm looking for. So if anybody has any leads on that, please let me know. And then I will need to dial in next meeting because of work. So I'll try to remind the mayor or somebody to connect me on the phone.
Okay, so just as a reminder for all of you that the time changes on Sunday, so don't be late at the next meeting, because it'll be a week for you guys to get accustomed to it.
It shouldn't take that long.
The CFO starts on the 14th, so if you guys have an opportunity to stop by over, we had hoped that she was going to come in, but she is, and to meet you all, but she is working her tail off to finish her work over there. And I guess Saturdays, Sundays, and every other minute she can do to get it done. So, but please come in next week and introduce yourselves to her. She's delightful. I think you'll all enjoy talking with her. The next meeting, I will be on a road trip, so I will miss you, but I will not be here. But Councilman Trimble, Mayor Pro Tem Trimble, will be here to handle the meeting. And last, as to Judge Bates, obviously, the tragedy of that is great, but I don't want to focus on that. I would like to focus on a bright moment, which is that from a city perspective, the outpouring from the legal community to offer up and say how many people are willing to be judged in the interim was very kind. That I would specifically like to our district court judges, former Councilwoman Valentine, Judge Imler, Bill Stewart, Dave Hatch, Art Blauvelt, all of them within, less than a day said, what can we do to help? And don't worry about it, we'll cover it. And I just really appreciate the effort to try to fill in the spaces that were very necessary for the city. And so on that, we will break for executive session for 10 minutes.
No, we'll come back if there's a need for more, but 10 minutes is probably.
And
the
action
starting
is
point.
expected.
Pretty optimistic.
Yeah,
9? Tomorrow's 9? 9 o'clock tomorrow morning?
I don't know how you guys always remember the bill number.
Wilson planned it last year.
No. You did it. That might have been the problem.
Yeah.
Can you send it to me? Can you send it to me right now? Because
Yeah.
All right. I would say for a motion, oh, we're back on the record at 8:15. There is no action. I would be interested in a motion.
Move adjournment.
There is a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?